Al-Bassa, also known as Betzet in Hebrew, was a Palestinian Arab village in the Mandatory Palestine's Acre subdistrict. It was situated close to the Lebanese border, 19 kilometers north of the district capital, Acre, and 65 meters above sea level. Etymology: Bassa has been identified with the border town Betzet listed in the Tosafta and the Jerusalem Talmud as subject to the laws of Shemitah. It was called Betzet during the Roman period, and its Arabic name is Al-Bassa. In the period of Crusader rule in Palestine, it was known as Al-Bassa. Ahmad ad-Din al-Isfahani, a chronicler and advisor to Saladin, referred to the village as Ain al-Bassa. History: the site shows signs of habitation in prehistory and the Middle Bronze Age. It was a Jewish settlement between 70 and 425 AD. Blown glass pitchers uncovered in a tomb in Al-Bassa were dated to circa 396 AD. An ancient Christian burial place and 18 other archaeological sites were located in the village. The Survey of Western Palestine, sponsored by the Palestine Exploration Fund, identified Al-Bassa as probably a crusading village. However, archaeological excavations uncovered evidence of an ecclesiastical farm in operation there between the 5th to 8th centuries, and pottery sherds indicate continuous inhabitation throughout the Middle Ages. The site was used in 1189 CE as a Crusade encampment during a military campaign, and a document dated October 1200 recorded the sale of the village by King Amalric II of Jerusalem to the Teutonic Order. No Crusader-era buildings have been found in Al-Bassa, and a cross once dated to the Crusader period was later redated to the Byzantine era. Al-Bassa was the first village listed as part of the domain of the Crusaders during the Hudna between the Crusaders based in Acre and the Mamluk Sultan al-Mansur in 1283. Ottoman Era. In 1596, Al-Bassa was part of the Ottoman Empire, a village in the Nahiyah of Tebnan under the Liwa of Safad, with a population of 76 Muslim families and 28 Muslim bachelors. It paid taxes on a number of crops, including wheat, olives, barley, cotton and fruits, as well as on goats, beehives and pasture land. In the 18th century, Al-Bassa became a zone of contention between Zahir al-Umar and the chiefs of Jabal Armil under Sheikh Nasif al-Nasser, while under his successor, Jeza Pasha, Al-Bassa was made the administrative center of the Nahiyah in around 1770. In 1799, Napoleon Bonaparte described Al-Bassa as a village of 600 metawalas. A map by Pierre Jacotin from Napoleon's invasion of that year showed the place named as El-Bassa. The European explorer Van der Velde visited El-Bassa in 1851 and stayed with the Sheikh Isel Yusuf, writing that the clean house of Sheikh Yusuf is a welcome sight, and the verdant meadows around the village are truly refreshing to the eye. He further noted that the inhabitants of Bassa are almost all members of the Greek Church. A few Muslims live among them, and a few fellows of a Bedouin tribe which wanders about in the neighborhood are frequently seen in the street. In 1863, the village was visited by Henry Baker Tristram, who described it as a Christian village, where olive oil, goat's hair, and tobacco seemed to be principal produce of the district, the latter being exported in some quantities by way of Acre to Egypt. Beekeeping also is not an unimportant item of industry, and every house possesses a pile of beehives in its yard. Quote, in the late 19th century, the village of Al-Bassa was described as being built of stone, situated on the edge of a plain, surrounded by large groves of olives and gardens of pomegranate, figs and apples. The village had about 1,050 residents. The village had a public elementary school for boys, a private secondary school, and a public elementary school for girls. British Mandate Era. The Franco-British Boundary Agreement of 1920 described an imprecisely defined boundary between Lebanon and Palestine. It appeared to pass close to the north of Al-Bassa, leaving the village on the Palestinian side but cut off from much of its lands. However, the French government included Al-Bassa in a Lebanese census of 1921 and granted citizenship to its residents. Meanwhile, a joint British-French boundary commission was working to determine a precise border, making many adjustments in the process. By February 1922 it had determined a border that confirmed Al-Bassa as being in Palestine. This became official in 1923. The citizenship of the residents was changed to Palestinian in 1926. In 1922, the people of Al-Bassa founded a local council which was responsible for managing its local affairs. The British census of September 1922 listed a population of 867 Christians, 150 Metawalis and 1 Jew, though Kaufman reports that the Muslims were Sunni rather than Metawalis. The Christians were listed as Greek Catholic, Orthodox, Church of England, Armenian Catholic, and 1 Roman Catholic. Its main economic activity was olive picking. At the 1931 census, which did not distinguish Metawalis from other Muslims, the village had 868 Muslims, 1076 Christians, and 4 Baha'is. The 1938 camp of Jewish laborers in Notram for construction of Teghet's Wall was located adjacent to the village, and it ultimately became the site of a Teghet fort. By 1945 the village was home to a regional college. Important public structures at the time of its existence included 2 mosques, 2 churches, 3 schools and 18 other shrines both holy to Muslims and Christians. Al-Bassa was the only Palestinian village in the Galilee with a Christian high school. Some of Bassa's former public structures have been preserved and are found today within the Israeli localities of Shlomi and Betzet. The population had grown to 1360 Muslims and 1590 Christians by 1945. In all, 2,950, all Arabs, with 25,258 dunams of land according to an official land and population survey. Of this, Arabs used 614 dunams for citrus and bananas, 14,699 dunams were plantations and irrigable land, 10,437 were used for cereals, while 132 dunams were built-up land. 1938 Massacre. In 1938, during the 1936–1939 Arab revolt in Palestine, the village was the scene of a massacre committed by British soldiers. On September 6, 1938, 4 soldiers of the Royal Ulster Rifles were killed when their armoured car ran over a landmine near the village. In retaliation, British forces burnt the village down. After that, perhaps a few days later, about 50 Arabs from the village were collected by the RUR and some attached Royal Engineers. Some who tried to run away were shot. Then, according to British testimony, the remainder were put onto a bus which was forced to drive over a landmine laid by the soldiers, destroying the bus and killing many of the occupants. The village's inhabitants were then forced to dig a pit and throw all their bodies into it. Arab accounts added torture and other brutality. The total death toll was about 20. 1948 and aftermath. Al-Bassa was one of the largest, most developed villages in the north of the country, covering a land area of some 20,000 dunams of hills and plains, 2,000 of which were irrigated. A regional commercial center, it contained over 60 shops and 11 coffee houses, a few of which sat along the Haifa-Beirut highway. The active village council had paved roads, installed a system of running water, and oversaw the convening of a wholesale produce market there every Sunday. An agricultural cooperative in the village counted over 150 members that promoted agricultural development, while also providing loans to local farmers. The population of about 4,000 was divided almost evenly between Muslims and Christians. Among the village institutions were a government-run elementary school, a national high school, a Greek Orthodox church, a Catholic church, and a mosque. The village was situated in the territory allotted to the Arab state under the 1947 UN partition plan. It was captured by Yeshuv's Haganah forces during the 1948 Arab-Israeli War in Operation Ben Ami on May 14, 1948. Al-Bassa's defenders were local militiamen. Following its capture, the Haganah's Palmach forces concentrated the villages in the local church where they shot and killed a number of youths before chasing the villages out. One witness to the expulsion said that it was preceded by soldiers shooting and killing 5 villagers inside the church, while another said 7 villages were shot and killed by soldiers outside the church. Al-Bassa was completely destroyed by the Israelis with the exception of a few houses, a church, and a Muslim shrine, still standing today. At least 60 of the Christian villages of Al-Bassa were taken by the Haganah to Masra, where they remained for more than a year. Altogether 81 residents of Al-Bassa became Israeli citizens as internally displaced Palestinians who lost the land rights and ended up in places like Nazareth. The only day on which Palestinians did not require a permit to travel during that period was Israel's Independence Day. On this day, which Palestinians call Nakba Day, internally displaced Palestinians would visit the former villages. Wakam, an attorney from Al-Bassa and a leading member of the Association for the Defense of the Rights of the Internally Displaced, explains, "The day when Israel celebrates is the day we mourn." Most of the former villages of Al-Bassa were pushed north towards Lebanon, concentrating in the Dbayh refugee camp near Jonia east of Beirut. Prior to and during the Lebanese Civil War, this camp suffered severe damage in the fighting and was largely destroyed, though it still has a population of some 4,233 people who are mostly Palestinian Christian refugees. Other former residents of Al-Bassa and the refugee camp in Lebanon ended up in Lansing, Michigan, where they established an international village club and hold annual gatherings attended by over 300 people. The village was inspected in 1992 when it was found that although most of the houses of Al-Bassa had been destroyed, a number of historic buildings survived, including 2 churches, a mosque, and a maqam. Mosque. According to Peterson, the mosque appears to be a relatively modern construct, probably built in the early 1900s. It consists of a tall square room with a flat roof supported by iron girders. There is a cylindrical minaret at the northeast corner. There are tall pointed windows on all 4 sides, and a mihrab in the middle of the south wall. At the time of the inspection, 1992, the building was used as a sheep pen. Maqam. The maqam is located about 20 meters east of the mosque. It consists of 2 parts, a walled courtyard, and a domed prayer room. In the courtyard there is a mihrab in the south wall, and a doorway in the east wall leads into the main prayer room. Pendentives springing from 4 thick piers support wide arches and the dome. In the middle of the south wall there is a mihrab, next to a simple minbar, made of 4 stone steps. Culture. Henry Baker Tristram during his 1863 visit to the village made a detailed description of the women's Palestinian costumes, where, after quoting what Tristram wrote about the headdresses in Al-Bassa, notes that coin headdresses went out of use for daily wear in Galilee at the beginning of the 20th century, but continued to be worn by brides for the weddings. Bibliography.